Hey guys, United here, and this video is going to be a little bit different than usual, but like I advertised, I'm going to be doing a lot more commentary videos, and this one is going to be just quite that. I invited my friend Blacksteelking to come along, and together we're going to analyze the story of this ghost train. I hope you guys enjoy. See you in the video. Alright guys, here we go. So have you ever heard of the story of the ghost train?
No.
Oh my god. So I just learned about this story like not too long ago, and apparently it was about this Italian company, this brand new Italian company that was unveiling a train, and it was outside of a town called Lombard, or a tunnel called Lombard in Italy, and it was the summer of 1911, and the train called the Zanetti had 3 cars and left Rome, and it was heading north. And it entered this tunnel, and it had 106 passengers on board. So what happened was, as the train approached the tunnel, 2 passengers, they felt so unnerved by this that they actually jumped the train before entering the tunnel. And a few of them, despite having major injuries from jumping from a moving train, a few of them recollected that the train actually went into the tunnel and disappeared. Like, the tunnel closed up behind them.
Wait, the tunnel disappeared, or the
train?
The whole train?
Yeah, the whole train went into the tunnel, and the tunnel closed behind them. Yeah, that's
Wow.
Yeah.
That is mind-boggling.
Exactly. It's pretty strange, actually. After the accident, the 2 passengers that were rescued, they suffered from psychiatric disorder caused by stress, and they later became back to normal. But the passengers had recollected that had happened, and the train was covered in this milk white mist that gradually became, more viscous. They knew that something was wrong with the train, and that's why they jumped. They checked the tunnel, the entire tunnel actually, and the tunnel was fine. Like, actually, the tracks continued on, and I believe trains continued to run on that line for years, but it was just at one event. Now, the railroad company, this opening of this new line, the locomotive and the cars were completely gone. Like, they have the same for the railroad. Like, they've got similar models, but those particular locomotive and cars just completely disappeared from history. Like, they weren't found anywhere. It was really strange.
That is scary, man.
Yeah. And the thing is that this was not a very talked about event. This was probably one of the least talked about events in 1911. It was probably due to the coal shortages, because that was more of a big problem that was going on. And it was on the brink of World War I. It was, about 3 years away. So this kind of got, overshadowed by world events in terms of, a whole train disappearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody, it says here, nobody would recollect the accident until one of the passengers who was looking through the archives in 1926 found an interesting record. So you want to hear that?
I mean, I would like to hear what he found.
Okay. So he found that it said in Mexico, there was 104 Italians that showed up out of nowhere, and they all affirmed that they were traveling from Rome. However, the record was dated 1845. So the Italians were actually considered mad and put into a psychiatric hospital. The things and the clothes that they wore didn't correspond to the time of 1845 either. And on the belongings of one of the tobacco boxes was a sign that said 1907 and is still kept in Mexico.
So basically, they jumped from one place of the world to another place. Like, so that tunnel transported them into Mexico, but in the future.
Actually, in the past.
In the past?
Yeah, they went back over 65 years.
Years. Did they have tobacco back then?
They did, but no tobacco company would make something that says 1907 on it in 1845. So essentially, the train, with 104 people on board, Italians no less, disappeared into a tunnel, only to have its passengers appear in Mexico in 1845. What's your take on that?
I mean, I never, thought that it was impossible. I always thought it was possible, just like extremely rare. Because like I've heard stories of like a little girl going into a forest and completely disappearing for like 10 years, and then she comes back out from the forest, still just as young or the same age, and like everyone around her had aged a ton.
Yep,
I don't remember. Have you heard of that story?
Yeah, I've heard those stories too. It's very common in Romania, I believe. Yeah, those. I think definitely there's something in this world that we don't know. It's an unseen world, and in all honesty, I think it's best we do not know what's going on, because I bet if people did that, people would panic and they'd be rioting in the streets and yada yada this, yada yada that. That's why government keeps secrets from us.
Right.
But I think honestly, some people say that the reason, like this article says that they've seen this ghost train before. It's been witnessed in countries of Russia, India, Germany, Italy, Romania. All of these are very, very strange, very more than meets the eye statements. And it says it's the same train from 1911 with the 3 cars, and it's without people, and all the windows are shut with their curtains, so there is no way that you can actually see inside this train. It just blows by and no one would know the difference.
That sounds just terrifying to me. Like, I know about the one, the silver train that goes in Sweden.
Oh yeah,
I've only seen it twice, and no one was on board, and it's just speeding through like really fast.
Yeah, those are really strange. Yeah, according to this, the last report of this kind of ghost train, in a sense, was in Crimea in 1991. It was they said that the train went by a field and actually hit some chickens, in a sense.
What?
Yeah.
Poor chickens, man.
And apparently, in the same year, a paranormal investigator actually jumped in front of this train, and the paranormal investigator is now reported missing.
So they never found the investigator.
Nope. They reported that he jumped in front of the train, but when the train hit him, he was nowhere to be found. Transported, probably lost through time.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. I mean, if the body is not anywhere to be found, I mean, it's no way the body could be incinerated from the impact.
No, yeah, I mean, there would be gibs and pieces left behind. I mean, everyone's seen a good war flick, so everyone knows that when a person, is just completely disintegrated, it doesn't mean that they're gone forever. There's still a little bit of them. Even in a nuclear blast, there's still something left. But in this case, there's nothing left. 104 Italians, ended up in Mexico for the rest of their lives. Essentially, kind of in a psychiatric ward. And people that are, hit by this train, apparently they end up somewhere, who knows where. The train could be in the future, in the past. It's honestly a story as old as time itself, because no one really knows what happened to that train. 104 people are essentially lost to history, and not to mention the locomotive and all the cars. We will probably never know exactly what happened to this train.
I'm getting more flashbacks from the time when I was going to Russia and visiting my my grandmother and grandfather.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Do you remember when I told you about the super wide ghost train?
Yeah, I think that was definitely a hop into another dimension. You probably actually saw something like, what was going on with this train. The train actually completely disappeared to history.
So I guess I disappeared for a while from the world. I mean, I remember more now, actually. It's like 7 seats across from both sides, and then I looked out the window and it was like... Now I remember there wasn't a total darkness, but it was nighttime, and there was a lot of forest.
Yeah, I think definitely you probably encountered something like a snap to an alternate reality, because it is. People have reported, seeing stuff like that before, and I think honestly, in your case, that's probably what happened. And in the case of all these people and this train, who knows? Who knows? You guys could have probably been in the same situation.
Perhaps. What if they are stuck in the same kind of place where I was? Except for me, I got out pretty fast.
Very true. I mean, this could be the train that's more of like a dimension hopper, like that. The mist that was reported around the train. Who that could be sort of a sign that the train is going to do something. Like this is probably one of the few reported trains in history to disappear. I've only looked into a few of missing trains, and most of them have been found. I believe there is one from Lake Michigan, I believe, that there was a train that was running right along the shore of Lake Michigan, and it was carrying a engineer, a fireman, and a conductor, and they were never heard from again. Now, it took about 100 years, I believe. The train crashed into Lake Michigan in 1910, and later, I believe, almost 105 years later, they actually dove down to Lake Michigan. It was really, really deep, actually, and they found the wreckage of this train. It was down there for 100 years, and no one even knew.
Wow.
So, it's very, very possible that the train could have just, could have crashed, and the investigators might not have known where it gone. But I, for one, I believe that the 2 passengers that jumped from the train, I believe that they felt something like in them, that they needed to jump from that train. And probably more people would have jumped if they had, listened. But, I mean, you do have to be pretty crazy to be jumping from a moving train before disappearing.
Right.
Yeah, you do have to have a little bit of craziness, but hey.
That and a lot of instinct.
And a lot of instinct, yeah. I mean, they could have easily died by hitting the ballast, but they didn't. And I think honestly it kept them alive, and I'm actually really curious about what happened to these people because, like I said, this is on kind of the eve of World War One. World War One is about 3 years away, and he didn't discover this archive of the Mexicans until 1926, and World War Two is about 20 years away, and it's very strange about. I kind of want to know what happened to these passengers and if there are any surviving relatives or any I want to see these articles that these Italians are were found or locked up because this is very interesting, and I believe that if more information was actually dug up about this incident, that I think it definitely needs to be kind of put forward, and there's more information, there's more than meets the eye out there, and
Indeed.
I think one day we might be able to find what actually happened to this train.
Certainly. I mean, also when just this recent discussion about the trains, I just remembered a dream I had. It was about a train, and it was in my room. I woke. The dream was that I woke up in my room and I saw a train speeding outside of my house, through the sidewalk. And I remember feeling terrified. I don't know why I would be terrified of a train running through, the sidewalk. But I just felt super terrified and then woke up from the dream. Strange. Any conspiracies on that?
I haven't heard particularly anything of it, but I believe that a train running through the streets, it's very kind of rooted that when a train runs through a street, that it's it could very well be a sign that something is coming, something big, because the train was really kind of one of the first significant objects in history to really kind of push the world into the Industrial Revolution, and without that we would still kind of be in pockets of places we'd probably go on horse, but it would take many months to reach a place instead of days or even
or just hours
even. The advent of the airplane probably wouldn't even came along if the steam train hadn't come first. So I believe when a train appears in a dream, this is just my personal belief, that it's a sign that something big and maybe dreadful it could be coming your way. And who knows? It could even be something like this train, where the train disappeared into time and has the ability to appear in people's subconscious, or something like that. Who knows? It could be a word of warning. It could be a word of great fortune. Because there's so many different types of ways people can view a train. Some people fear trains because of their great might and power, and some people love trains because of their great might and power. For me, I mean, I've kind of always seen trains as this symbol of great power, great industrial power. Big steam pistons pushing rods that connect to wheels, and there's a sense of power behind it. And even now, as railroads have big diesel locomotives that are transitioning into electric locomotives, there's still a great sense of industry in them. And I believe that if I see a train in my dream, it could mean good luck for me, great prosperity. Now,
Right.
I'm not quite sure about your situation, but I would be thinking that if there was great dread that you were feeling, that perhaps perhaps it might be something dreadful on the horizon. So that's in my case, I would say keep your arms at width length, and keep your mind at the ready, because you never know what's gonna happen.
All right. Yeah, back to the ghost train, like you talked about. Yeah, I mean, what qualifies it to be a ghost train? I mean, if it appears and disappears, I suppose that could be like qualified as a ghost train.
Oh, I believe that the term of ghost train is a train that people know that existed, that they've seen before, and likely the train left and never arrived at its next destination. There are other accounts of ghost trains that are out there. Another one that I can think of that's a pretty famous one is the Canadian ghost train.
All right. I'm listening.
All right. So, yeah, they're called the St. Louis Lights. So this is a quick little one that it's actually been featured in quite a few things. But so the St. Louis Lights, it's kind of known as the St. Louis Ghost Train, and it's a paranormal phenomenon that happens in St. Louis, Saskatchewan, Canada. It's kind of a desolate place, and they say that back in the early 1900s, like the turn of end of the 19th century, early 20th century, there was a railroad brakeman who was running through that section of track, and he had fallen and his head was decapitated by a passing train.
Ow.
Yeah, and so the line is now abandoned, but it was between Prince Albert and north of St. Louis, and during before the advent of cars, before cars were even popular, the railroad crews would actually report that that they would see a lantern of just kind of this light, which became effectively known as the St. Louis Light, or Ghost Light in a sense. And people that actually worked for the railroad and knew him, they theorized that this was him looking for his lost head.
So kind of like what's this? What do you call those riders that ride on horses and are headless?
I believe that's Ichabod Crane. I believe that's the Headless Horseman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
instead it didn't.
Yeah, it's kind of like him, but instead of that, it's a railroad brakeman.
And looking for his head instead of having it in his hands.
Yeah. Even after the tracks were torn up, it was a very common occurrence, and it occurs on a regular basis on this same stretch where the roadbed, which constantly stays the same after many years, but it's still a very common occurrence. Now, a group of 12th graders from La Rouge in the same area, they did a science experiment, and they determined that the diffraction was caused by vehicles that were passing by. They figured that the light was that. However, that most of these reports were actually reported while the railroad was still in operation and before cars even existed in that area. So there's a lot of questions that still need to be asked.
Yeah.
And it was this was so popular that in 2014, the Canadian Post actually used a stamp to depict the St. Louis ghost train. And it was one of 5 stamps that depicted Canadian ghost tales, and I think that's really awesome, actually.
Yeah. By the way, now that we've talked a lot about this ghost train, it takes me back to the one conversation we had once with, dimensional skipping. Like, they were doing that with boats, They had a little experiment, and when they kind of tried teleporting, it failed, and some people ended up in the walls and, kind of cut in half, sort of.
Yeah, I believe that was called the Philadelphia experiment.
Ah, yes. So I wonder if the Philadelphia experiment has caused something in like our time or universe, or at least on our planet Earth, to like it's causing side effects and like maybe
Yeah, maybe,
how do we?
yeah, exactly. I totally believe you. Like it's a ripple in the space-time continuum.
Right.
And I think that even then, it's like, we're trying to play God by trying to make this ship, disappear. But, we can't, because this, when, the carrier that actually occurred in it was the USS Eldridge. And it was rendered invisible for, I think about 30 to 45 seconds. Check here. Yeah.
I mean, invisible. Wouldn't the correct word be untangible?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, they couldn't even see it, but the experiment ended up causing the crew to all die in the incident. And it's very, very strange, and it's kind of something that when you sweep it under the rug, there's not a lot you can actually say about it. And I believe there are many people, military people, that have gone completely missing just because the government does not want the other people to know about what they're doing. And there's something about that you never really you'll never really know. And that's probably what happened with our ghost train people here. The Italian government was testing something, and the train just happened to get caught in the middle of that. And it's we'll probably, like I said, we probably will never know about what would happen to that train, because the Italian government was overthrown no less than 3 times in the next decade. So we'll probably never know, because most of their archives were probably destroyed or burned, or all 3.
Indeed. And that would make it incredibly difficult to recover any record of anything, really. If it's burnt down, it's impossible. So
it's true.
Unless we can go back in time and recover those things, which would be, well, we have no way of doing so.
Yeah. That's true. But I believe honestly that the someday we'll get answers. We'll find trains like this, and we'll find missing airplanes that that have gone missing, like the BOAC flight that went missing that was carrying almost 100 people on board. The 2 planes that went missing in the Caribbean. We'll find those airplanes, and especially the Malaysian airliner that went missing 5 years ago. Like we'll find those planes eventually, and we'll find all these machines, but it may take many years. Like we probably won't even find it until the next century, and the next generation will probably know about what happened to these machines. And obviously, we'll probably never know.
Indeed.
All right. Well, I
Which
think
is
this.
rather.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that was a great conversation, actually. So,
Yes. I
all
mean, even
right.
though I didn't have much input, but personally, I don't know that much.
All right. I think you did good, man. All right.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. United out.